Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Story Darlings podcast. I'm Sandra.
And I'm Tara.
What are we talking about today? Excuse me. I just choked.
As Sandra chokes to death on excitement here, we're going to be having a special episode on Fourth Wing, which I read in a whole 2 days after Sandra sent me the book. I absolutely loved this book.
What aspect of it did you love the most, would you say? Was it a character? Was it the setting? Was it tropes? Like, what would you say was your favorite?
So Sandra knows my heart lies in snark. And there was not one character that had snark coming out their ass. Like, pretty much every character in this book had snark. Like, Mira has snark. Violet definitely has snark. Xaden has snark. And then your two little cute, and I call them both cute, even though one of them's like huge and scary. Dragons all have snark. So I think that is my favorite part because I was laughing out loud during this book. And I tend to not laugh out loud. I tend to just it was funny, but this book had me going.
So it sounds like Tara enjoyed the banter and dialogue probably first and foremost, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this book came out in May and I didn't read it until July, and I kept getting messaged like, hey, you should read this book. You should read this book. And I'm just like, I don't know. It seems to be like blowing up. And I don't know. I get a little bit hesitant whenever something just gets that big so fast, because in my head, I'm like, it can never live up to the hype. And so I tried looking for a copy, could not find a copy, finally found one. There was like one kind of copy in Walmart. And so I read it, and I didn't read it as fast as you, like 2 days. I read it it was probably like 3, maybe 4 days, but it was so addictive. I loved all of the characters. I loved the War Academy setting. It's just been a long time since I've read something with like young adult. It's not like young adult, but 20 years and up, and just with this kind of setting. And it was so good. And then you have the grumpy dragons, as you said. And I wanted to go to this college, even though it seems very scary and brutal and I would definitely die. But yeah.
I was about to say, Sandra, we'd be dead before we even got to that little bridge that they had to cross. Somebody would have pushed us off those stairs, or we would have tripped and fallen down the stairs. We wouldn't have made it up there.
We would have tripped over each other and tumbled down into the ravine together. So
yes.
Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. So much fun. The book opens up and it is conscription day. And conscription day, I kept thinking about it as move-in day. So everyone's you're not really enrolled yet. You kind of have to earn your passage, literally. And so conscription day for the first years involves, as Tara said, passing this parapet. It is described as being 18 inches wide. And so I just bought a walking pad, which is about 18 inches wide or something like that. And I can't even stay in the center without a bar or holding the wall. So, and then they're talking about how the stretch of this parapet is over 250 steps or something. And then tack on a big storm and wind, and it's getting dark and the stones are slick and there's no barrier to hold on to. I'm like, yeah, I would definitely die.
And tack on that she even had somebody wanting to kill her before she even got there because of her last name.
Yeah.
Actually multiple people wanting to kill her before she even got there because of her last name. Some because her last name means something and they wanted to take the family down. And some, as we will discover, have some huge grudges with her family for being the reason that their family is dead.
Yeah. The book opens up. It's conscription day. Violet is climbing these stairs, complaining about the weight of this pack. She's only been training to be a rider, a dragon rider, for 6 months. She is very fragile. She has interesting hair. We learn that when her mom was pregnant with her, her mom had some kind of illness and a fever, and they blame this sickness for leaching out the color of her hair and making her so frail. And her sister is having an argument with General Lilith Sorrengail, who is their mother, about placing her here because she has been studying all her life to be a scribe like her father. who passed like a year or something before, like very recently. And then we learned that she had a brother, Brennan, who was in the healer quadrant, who had died like 5 years prior in a rebellion.
Well, he was a writer too, but he was a melder. Like his power that he got from his dragon was melding, like his signet. He wasn't a healer.
Yeah,
He
had a dragon. Oh, yeah, that's right.
He was a dragon rider, but he was one that like his signet was to not just heal somebody, but like make it new, basically.
Yeah, as long as you have all the parts still there, like he could fix you, which is extremely rare, apparently. And so her mom is pretty mean and tough-skinned and doesn't treat her any differently than anybody else. And is just like, look, you're going to have to grow up. People are going to have it out for you because of your name, and you're just going to have to survive or die, basically. And so then the first challenge is parapet.
Yeah. And so on her way up, she meets two people. I forgot the boy's name, but he is a very quick in and out because he falls, and so he's dead. But she meets a girl named Rhiannon, and this was very much me and Sandra, I think, because like we met in high school. We're like, oh, hi, friends. And so Rhiannon and Violet remind me of me and Sandra, like so. But so Violet had a little bit of a head start with her sister Mira. Her sister Mira like started throwing things out of her bag and like, no, you don't need that, you need this, and gave her some armor that was made out of her dragon scales. And that was like the first funny line to me in her telling Violet how she got those scales and how she like shrank them. And she's like, yeah, I know somebody that has the ability to shrink and enlarge certain things.
I knew you were going to love that part.
And I was just like, oh, okay, way to hint. But so she shrank her little dragon scales down and made armor for Violet. And she also gave her some non-skid like shoes, basically, because she's like, there's a storm coming and you're not going to make it across that parapet without non-skid shoes. And so Violet is over here. She's like, hey, I had these. I don't want my new friend to die. So take off one of your shoes and I'll give you one of my shoes so that you can like have some traction. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I can tell I'm going to like this person.
They were so sweet together. And then the moment that Dylan's crossing and he dies, because he's like basically telling his life story, like, oh, I'm engaged, I'm going to get married, I'm wearing a ring around my neck. And then he just immediately falls off and dies screaming. And I'm like, oh, okay, it's going to be this kind of book. No one is safe. So then, of course, I'm just like, oh, I hope nothing happens to Rhiannon. And so they're crossing. Behind Violet is a guy named Jack Barlowe. You want to describe this piece of work?
His name's Jack, but it should have been Jackass, because he is the biggest tool I have ever read in any of these books. He just has like this huge chip on his shoulder, and he thinks he's like God's gift to everything, and that he is the decider of who is weak and who is worthy. And he has decided that he is gonna, take the family down by, picking off the weakest link, which is Violet, because she is the sickly, she is deemed as unworthy. And so he has decided he's going to kill her first thing. And so he charges across the parapet trying to get to her.
But he doesn't even go for her first. He like gets the poor sucker behind him, which Violet was just like, oh my God. And then Jack turns around and is like just grinning at her through this storm. And she's just like, oh my God, I need to get across. And leading up to this parapet challenge, Mira tells Violet, she's like, look for Dane. He'll get you taken care of. Dane, as we learn, is Violet's like childhood best friend. Like they have been just so close since they were like 5 or something like that. And so I think she even has like a little crush on him, right?
Oh, she doesn't have a little crush. She has a huge crush.
She has a huge, he is described as being super cute, right? Great smile, dimple, just like golden boy next door type of thing. And so she's trying to look for Dane. Dane's freaking out because he doesn't want Violet being a part of this. He's being very protective. He knows about her physical situation and all of that, and he just worries. And then Mira also says to whatever you do, avoid Xaden Riorson. Do not go near him. And what's the beef with the Riorsons?
So Violet's mom had Xaden's dad put to death for an insurrection that happened, which coincidentally enough is where we learned that Brennan died during this insurrection, and it was Xaden's dad who killed him.
Xaden's dad is known as the Great Betrayer, and he's the one that started this rebellion, as the Navarre Empire calls it. And Xaden's family is from Tirandor. Is that the name of the country, I think? So yes, General Sorrengail, so Violet and Mira's mother, is the one that put his ass down. But it is also Xaden and his family who's responsible for Brennan's death as well at this point. So Violet, as a relief, she makes it across parapet, and then they start classes and stuff. She gets all moved into the Rider quadrant, and then they go to classes like Battle Brief, which, as the story goes on, Battle Brief starts becoming like this very propaganda-driven type of class, right? Information is very one-sided, and they're kept in the dark about what's really happening and getting very selective type of information to push, whatever the school's agenda is or that kind of thing. And so we kind of get more information about the world. So there's Navarre, who has a king called, what is it? Is it King Tori? Who has a couple sons. And then there is the neighboring kingdom of Poromil, who has a viscount, and then like some other places, and then a barren wasteland. And so you want to talk a little bit about that place?
Yeah, so we are introduced to some creatures that Violet, at this point, understands as folklore. What are they called? Like the Vein or something like that?
Venin.
And so they are people who have tapped into magic without like a dragon. And so they are using the earth to fuel their magics, and kind of to the dark side, right? Like they've got like blood red like eyes, and they're just not great people. And so Violet has always assumed that this is like a story of her parents to make her be good and things like that. And this is like the folklore.
It's crazy because as the book goes on, Violet is trying to figure out what's really happening here because so many secrets are being held, and she can feel something is off with Battle Brief, with all of these skirmishes that are happening at the border. And then eventually hand-to-hand combat class starts, and her first match is against a separatist. That's the name of all of these kids who are the children of the Great Betrayer and all of his people. They have been marked with a relic that stretches from like their arm. Xaden's goes up to his neck, but they're all marked. And so this match starts, and Violet is pitted against this little firecracker named Imogen, and gets her ass handed to her because, I mean, Violet is Violet, and Imogen is pretty ruthless. Like, she is a fighter.
Imogen like just cracks all of the ligaments in her like arm because Violet's like joints are not very stable in the first place. And so Violet has to go to a mender to get fixed. I felt really bad for her.
The mender also is Nolan, and he's been like fixing her up ever since she was little too, just because it's almost like a Mr. Glass thing. As soon as I started reading all of the things like her being able to seriously injure herself from falling and stuff, I was like, oh, this is just like Mr. Glass.
They called me Mr. Glass.
But she refuses to back down in this fight with Imogen. Like, she refuses to yield and tap out. It's the teacher that's like, okay, she yields because she didn't want to show weakness, because that would just put an even larger target on her back when everyone's already after her for her name. And so she comes to this realization that if she doesn't use her wits to get her through these challenges, she's never going to make it to presentation or threshing. And so Mira catches wind of Violet's disastrous first match and leaves her little present on her pillow. And what is it?
It is a book that Brennan gave Mira when she went into the school. And so it's like his little advice things for her.
In this book of Brennan, Violet gets the idea to go collect some herbs and do a little
Poisons.
Experimentation, which is fun. And so she goes out each night, like starting to collect things, and it works for a while. It's a very, very smart strategy. But one night she's out collecting and goes to climb a tree to get some of the ingredients. And you want to talk through this scene?
Yes. So she sees a group of people meeting, a very specific group with relics on their necks. So they are the separatists kids, and they're not allowed to meet over like 3 people. And so there's this huge group of them. And so she's just up in the little tree, like, well, if I go down, they're going to see me and assume that I'm spying on them, or they're going to figure out that I'm like poisoning people to win these bouts. And she always makes like a concerted effort to never poison people enough to really cause them damage. But she just wants them to be a little under the weather for her like fights with them, right? So she is very, very particular about the poisons that she does use and the damage that they will do. And so she doesn't want people to catch on that is how she is surviving. So she just stays up in this little tree, and like her poor arm that just got mended is not all healed. And she's like trying to hold on to this tree, and they're meeting, and basically Xaden is helping them. Like, he's like, okay, what are you guys having problems with? Do you need training in this area? Do you need help studying? Like, how are you going to best survive this school? And before that, we have not seen Xaden like care at all. Like, he's just kind of this aloof, like shows no emotions besides like maybe hatred. And so she is staring at him like, wait a minute, is this the same guy? Because he actually cares about these kids. He's trying to help them. And these are all like first years and second years and third years of school. And he's using all of their strengths to help each other. And so they finally leave, and she climbs down from the tree, and he is waiting for her. He noticed that she was up there the whole time. He's like, so are you going to tell on us? And she's like, no, you guys aren't doing anything wrong. You're just trying to survive. And he's like, that's not what your mother would say. And she's like, well, I don't really care. Like, I'm not my mother. And you guys weren't doing anything wrong.
No, Violet's reaction to her mom is very disarming for Xaden. Like, it kind of brings his defenses down a little bit, but they have this little exchange, right? Because I can't remember when he first calls her Violence as a play off of her name, but she throws a couple daggers at him, and she's really good with daggers. Like, even though she's physically fragile, she is very agile, very quick on her feet, and good with throwing knives.
It was during this meeting, because she throws him, like, he's standing by the tree, and she throws him, and he's like, you missed. And she's like, back it up, dude. Like, go back. And like the knives were like touching his ears when he backed up. And she's like, I didn't miss. Like, I hit exactly where I wanted to hit.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think he also has like a little bit of a respect building for her too. Like, not only does it disarm him that she is not fully on her mother's side, but also, he is building respect, because I think he's also the first one to figure out that she is poisoning people in order to like soften her blows. And I think that that's hilarious.
The funny thing is, so all of the first years are tasked with doing some kind of stupid chore around the school. And so she volunteers to do breakfast duty, to get up super early and then to basically stand behind the food counter and like serve all of the students or cadets their food. And so she picks this position because she can single these people out that she knows will fight her next and make them sick. And so she's trying to balance how much poison to give them with when to administer it, exactly so that it hits. And so week after week, she keeps winning her matches because her competition gets sick mysteriously until she mistimes the last one. The girl gets sick like beforehand or something. But it doesn't just stop there. Xaden steps in. You want to talk about it?
So I'm going to go back to how she knows who she is going to be fighting every day, which was a little secret that Brendan put in his book, that they always announce who is going to be going up against each other, like the leaders do. And they put it on this little board. And so she's been sneaking in at night to see who she's going to be up against so that she knows who to like give a little dose of poison. And she like switches the poisons up so nobody catches on that this person's getting sick the same way, right? And so she mistakenly does the poison just a little too soon, and the girl gets sick earlier than she intended and ends up in the infirmary. So her kind of like partner in this bout is out. And so Xaden steps in. He's like, I'll fight her.
And Dane's like, no.
Like he's afraid for her life at this point. But Xaden, it's the first like really, really like hot scene, right? And he doesn't like full on attack her. He's basically just pointing out her weak spots, but in a very like snarky, like, oh, right here kind of way. But it like you can sense the like tension between these two at this point, because Violet has been commenting about how hot he is, right?
Uh-huh.
And you at this point, I couldn't tell if Xaden liked her. I thought he did because he's made some jealous comments about Dane and stuff. But like you couldn't really tell if it was just still hatred burning and he doesn't like anybody that's helping her, or if it was more like I have feelings for you moment. But you do get the sense that he is building in his respect for her this whole time too, though. So
yeah, this early in the game, there's definitely sexual tension between the two. But as you said, it's still unclear whether it's a genuine attraction, because Dane has made it very obvious that he cares about Violet and she means a lot to him. And Xaden has picked up on that. So you don't really know whether it's Xaden throwing it in Dane's
just like
face.
Yeah.
Because during this one-on-one match on the mat, Xaden makes it clear, like, shames Dane. Like, Dane hasn't been teaching you shit. Like, you need to work on this, that. Like, he's too busy protecting and coddling you, and you're not improving. And so that just, sparks even more beef between the two. But after this...
So you also see, like around this point, why Xaden is, even though he is the child of the rebellion leader, he is still kind of high up there. He is a wing leader. And one of the reasons for that is we meet his dragon, and she is not one to be messed with. She is like the scariest of the scary. Minus, I guess, the commander's dragon, who has a black dragon.
Coda.
Yeah. So minus that one, Xaden's is pretty not to be messed with. And so everybody's afraid of his dragon and thus like gives him respect, I think. But you also see, just like needling that knife, you also see other students catching on that Dane is giving special treatment to Violet. And so you have Tenon like calling out that she is sleeping with Dane, and that's why she's getting special treatment. And Rihanna is over here like, they've been friends forever, dude. They're not sleeping together. Get off of it. Like, do you not know anything about the leadership? Because his dad is her mom's like second in command, basically. And so that is why he's showing favoritism.
Yeah, you get the gist too that Rhiannon is basically kind of the mindset, well, if she wanted to sleep with him, so what? Like, fuck off. Like, big deal type of attitude about it too. But yeah, I love their friendship so much because she's always coming to Violet's defense, and they just have each other's backs, and Violet needs that. Even though her sister warned her not to get close to anyone, until school's over, basically, until everyone is going to survive and make it.
Either dead or survived.
Yeah. And so after Parapet, after these one-on-one, fisticuff matches on the mat, there is the gauntlet. And Violet, on top of being fragile, is very short and petite, apparently. And so the whole scene, I'm imagining like a Wipeout / American Ninja Warrior type of course that like things are coming at you. They're having to like jump over things that will, if they miss, they'll fall to their death. And they have some practice gauntlets, and then they have like their last one is a timed race to get through it. And they award points or something, right, to the squad that gets the most people through the gauntlet. So again, Violet has to use her wits.
And in the fastest time. And this is where some of her team, including Tennant, and some of her not team, Jack Barlowe, turn against her because they're like, well, she's our weakest link. She's not going to finish it in a quick time. And then the people who win this get to go find their dragons first, right? And so you have Sawyer in their group who had already been through the first year and he didn't find a dragon. And so they're like trying to convince everybody to like basically kill her so that they have a better chance of finding the dragons first, right? And he's like, that's not how it works. Like, just because you're first doesn't mean that the dragon picks you. Like, I know, like, dragon didn't pick me at all.
Yeah. Could you imagine having to repeat this like a Sawyer?
Like, I can't imagine having to do it in the first place. Like I don't know. Like, I saw like a meme or something. I think it was on a Sarah J. Maas fan site, and they were like, pick your poison. And one of them was like to live in like your fantasy, like your favorite fantasy books world. And like, I don't think I would want to do that. Like, yes, it would be kind of cool for a little while, but I don't think I could survive like the first day at this thing. So like, it wouldn't really be living. It would just be me like dying in my world. So like, a bunch of people picked that. And I'm like, I don't think you're thinking this through. Like, I don't think anybody's going to survive this.
I mean, maybe you could pick a different quadrant. You could be a scribe. I might lean toward the scribes. Just all the information in the
like,
books.
I would want a little dragon too.
Maybe you can have a boyfriend.
I'd be like FOMO over here. Like, I want the baby dragon.
Be like those bastards. They get to be the cool ones riding the dragons. Mm-hmm.
Yes. But I mean, I definitely wouldn't want to be in infantry, which is like the lowest of the low, like out there just to die.
Yeah, they're fodder. Mm-hmm.
So it's either scribe or
healer.
Death, I guess. I could be a healer. I could
see you
do
as
that.
a healer. Mm-hmm. You're good with
I could definitely.
blood. I am not.
I could definitely do that. Okay, anyway, but I still don't think I would like to do that. I would like to bring back somebody, I think, because that was another poison, like bring back somebody in here. And we'll get to, because I have a new somebody that I would like to bring back. But I would honestly want to bring back somebody from every book series.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, hit hard and...
Oh my God.
Which, spoiler alert, like, in case you didn't read that was a huge spoiler. Sorry. There are people I would like to bring back in every book series. But anyway, so we do this gauntlet, and she is using her, like, brains a little bit. And, like, she uses, like, a stick to get up, which the last, like, activity, so, like, your warped wall, if you will, from Ninja Warrior, is basically simulating getting up on a dragon's back. And this is where her shortness comes in, because dragons, as you know, are kind of big.
She's only 5 feet tall. That means the warped wall is almost 3 times taller than her.
Utter silence in the crowd.
And so she has to, like, try and figure out how to both, climb up on this huge dragon, but also she's teeny. And so what she does is she sticks a piece of wood in it and then climbs up on that wood and, like, uses it as a stair, right? And that comes back in a scene where I laughed really hard because her dragon's like, no, I've seen your memories. I know what you did. Like, I'm not about to let you stick, like, a branch in me. But anyway, so she does that and she succeeds, but somebody does not, because, like, somebody flies over right as they're, like, doing this, and there's a distraction, and Orly falls to her death. I think it was her, right?
Yeah. Poor Orly.
Which is very, very sad.
I definitely got like Rihanna vibes from Orly too. I was like, oh, they got a little girl crew going. Nope. She
Like
missed
a-
the platform during that jump. Yeah. It's interesting because the gauntlet, until this point, this is like the true test of her physical strength, right? Like she's been able to go like, oh, I can poison these people. I can do this. I can do that. And this one, she's like, okay, it really is physical. I really am small. How am I going to get through this? And Xaden kind of gives her a talk like, you don't have to follow the rules like everybody else does. You need to think outside the box more. And so she's thinking about it and thinking about it. And our girl is like very versed in the codex and all of the rules and regulations. And she's just like, oh, I remember like whatever you cross the parapet with, that is considered to be like, you know, a part of your person. So you can use anything that is a part of your person for any of these challenges. It's not cheating or anything like that. Totally kosher. And so she uses her daggers to just like dig in and like, you know, help climb and pull herself up to make up for that extra height difference. And she makes it. Yay!
Somebody is not too happy that she made it
No.
and calls her out. Amber Mavis is like, oh no, she broke the rules. And, you know, like Sandra said, our girl knew the codex. And so she's like, I didn't actually break the rules. Like, I bent them a little bit. So I'm whatever. But I think Amber was jealous because we learned previously that Amber was the one sleeping with Dane.
Yes, he slept with her when he was a first year.
You can tell that like Dane has some strong feelings for Violet. So I think Amber, she's also very like big into the rules, like
Very
Dane.
similarly to Dane.
Mm-hmm. I got very KL vibes off of Dane, and so like I was holding
Yes.
against him already because I'm like, you're gonna turn out like this fucking.
Aw. The whole Amber disclosure comes out because after Violet's little fight with Xaden, or he's teaching her on the mat, her body is like very sore and stuff. There's that massage scene in Dane's room. Like he takes her in there and is giving her a massage and stuff, which was really nice because who doesn't like a massage? And they're just having this talk about like, oh yeah, you know, who he's, you know, neither of them are virgins. They've had other lovers, as they put it. And so they just kind of have one of those little talks. But yes, Amber becomes a problem, as we'll see. And so after they get through the gauntlet, then there's something called presentation. So presentation is where they just march through the dragons, and the dragons are lined up and either incinerate them or not. And then a couple people died there. It was kind of, one of them was kind of a funny death that I shouldn't have been laughing at, because one is a guy named Pryor. He dies because he tries like running away or some shit because he's scared. And then at the end of that chapter, Luca died because she was just fucking annoying, like saying, oh, just talking smack about everybody. And then I guess one of the dragons had it up to here with listening to her talk, because she did too.
There was a comment and they're like, oh, I guess the dragons didn't like her either or something. Yeah. Like somebody made.
Like, bye, bitch. So threshing is when they're kind of released into the woods and they're like, okay, go try and bond with a dragon. But also there's several different type of dragon, right? There's like green, there's brown, orange, blue, all different colors of dragons. I think there's like 6 or 7 or something like that. And you have to behave differently depending on what color you're dealing with. Like some, like, just do not make eye contact with them, back away, that type of thing. And so they're each for their own. If cadets want to kill each other, they can try and do that. It's totally kosher. Violet tries to climb a tree so that she can see where dragons are, because she's not having any luck, like an hour and a half into this thing. And she sees the little gold one, like in a little clearing, all by itself, just hanging out. And then she sees Jack and his asshole friends planning taking down this little gold dragon, and so she tries to beat them there. And I think this is when they surround her, or they like confront her, lined up against her. But also Xaden's dragon, Sorrengail, I think she's a blue dagger tail, shows up, and Xaden's just hanging out along the perimeter too.
Yes, because he's not supposed to interfere with the threshing. And so she is dealing like these just like hit you and hurt you blows, not death blows.
Like she uses her knives. She gets them like in the shoulder and leg and stuff.
And Jack got his shoulder, which he has to have surgery for. Oh, poor baby. And so she is trying to save this little dragon. I forgot, like some of them ended up dead, right?
Yes. Tynan. I think Tynan died. Oren was injured and Jack ran away.
And Jack ran away. When the dragon showed up, right? Because like not only did Seagal show up, but so did Tyran, who is the only other known black dragon, like thousands of years old, wasn't even like supposed to be in the threshing.
So Tyran is over a century old, and yeah, he's the only other black one. His last rider died like 5 years before or something like that. And so he wasn't even, estimated to be a part of the threshing this round, but he just magically shows up.
Well, he didn't show up to the like presentation either, did he?
No, he didn't show up to presentation, but he showed up to threshing. And so Rebecca Yarros kind of does a little fake out because you're like, oh, there's a little baby dragon. Like Violet's going to be protecting this thing until she grows up. And then this black dragon shows up and you're like, oh yeah, that's going to be her dragon. That's who she's going to bond with. And it was so funny because my sister Taylor was reading these books and she was texting me. She's like, oh, they tried to make you think she was going to bond with the little gold dragon, but it's definitely the black dragon. And then like 5 minutes later, she sent me a screenshot of the page where Violet has to give the name of her other dragon. She's like, Andarna. And then like all hell broke loose type of thing. She goes, well, there's my theory.
Yep. So we find out that the little dragon, like we don't find out that it's a baby yet, but it is in fact a baby dragon.
Feathertail.
That is orphaned. And so basically its adopted parents are Tairn and his mate, Seagal. And so that is why these two dragons showed up and dragged for one of them, its rider along. And so Xaden couldn't step in, but he did kind of a little bit because he's like, watch your back at one point or something because somebody was charging at her. And so it's funny that he got dragged along to watch her try and protect this little dragon that was the smallest. And it was the smallest because it is in fact a baby. It hasn't grown into its dragonness. Yeah. And so she does bond with Tairn, but she also bonds with Andarna, who is the little baby. And it is so cute when like that interaction. Like I love the little baby dragon.
And this has never happened before in like the history of any kind of dragon riding. And so the dragons have to have this big meeting about it. So dragon hierarchy, there's something called the Empyrean, and that's where they meet to talk about dragon matters. And so while they're talking about, Sorrengail and all the school leadership is talking about it, there's really nothing that they can do about it at the end of the day because dragons have final say. And so the Empyreans are giving it the thumbs up or thumbs down, which they do give it the thumbs up. And this is when there's like an awkward kiss moment with Dane and Violet, like they go for a kiss and she's just like, nope, no spark there, no chemistry. It's almost like a brother kind of relationship at this point, right? Especially with how overbearing he's been and protective. It's definitely like a big brother thing.
Yeah. And we also see that like right after they bond with their dragons and they have to ride them, and Tairn is like putting her through her paces and she can't hold on, and so she keeps falling off. And normally if you fall off, the dragon's like, you weren't good enough and lets you die, right? So we see a lot of people falling to the death. And this is not a school that you want to go to because you're like your chances of survival are like very, very low, right?
No.
And so
I made it this far, we would fall off.
Yes. So, or maybe we'll get a nice dragon like Tairn, and he uses some of his magic to hold her on. Well, he cares. Like he at least saves her, right? He like gets her with his claws and then like throws her back up.
He's
and then
basically
like uses some of
playing with her and toying with her in the air, going at full speed. I'm like, I'd be vomiting all over the place. It'd be flying back in my face. I would be so sick.
But he also does like, I pictured this as like the elephant letting you get on its back and like it bends its little knees, right? So you can use the stair step. So that's what he does for her. And this is like one of those moments where he makes a snide comment in her head, right? Because that's also a power of like the dragons that you bond with. They can speak to you in your head. And he makes snide comments. She's like, usually dragons don't make accommodations for the humans to get up. And he's like, well, I've seen your memories and I watched what you did with those daggers. Like, this is an accommodation for me because I really don't want to get stuck. Okay, so just get on my back and move on. Let's go. And he is very gruff and very snarky. So, like, he is saying all of this in like I'm tired of your bullshit way. But he does. He like takes care of her. He holds her on with his magic and he like makes accommodations for her so that she can stay seated. And I think it's mainly because she was nice to the little baby. Like, he's like, I'll do it.
They keep all of these accommodations secret because, again, no one can know how weak Violet is, that she cannot stay seated on the dragon. He's using his power to, like, bind her to his back, basically. And so the next few weeks is flight lessons that are not going well for Violet. It's like she's falling off several dozen times throughout this. And then in the meantime, since they have now bonded with a dragon, that means they now have access to the dragon's power, so they can start doing small magic like unlocking doors, opening doors, like, you know, grabbing things. But there's also their signet powers manifesting, and there's some dangers that come with this. And you want to talk about some of the stuff that goes on with that?
So the powers could just overwhelm you, right? And could just whatever. And then there's some powers that are forbidden. Like, I think there's like a mind walker power kind of thing, which basically just gets you killed. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so he had that and he got his neck snapped.
That scene, though, because Jeremiah, he had zero control over it and he just started like spouting off every single thought, everyone around him that he could see. And then he gets to like Bodhi, and we haven't even talked about Bodhi. Bodhi is Xaden's cousin, and he's about to like talk about, oh my God, like he's going to be able to see my head and know that we've been blah. And then before that happens, neck gets snapped by a teacher. It's just, it's so cruel.
It was very awkward because he starts spouting like Dane and like his caring about her and like, oh no, he's going to find out I love her or whatever. It was very awkward. Secondhand embarrassment for her because she at this point has decided Dane is not like anything, but she hasn't told him that. And so Dane is like, oh, we kissed, we're going in the right direction, and she's like, nah. And then since people bonded with dragons, there were some, like I think it was like 41 that did not bond with dragons, right? And so they were out to basically murder, because this is okay. Like if you were able to murder the people, then maybe their dragon would choose you, right? And so 7 of them go and attack Violet in her sleep, which is against the codex. Like, when you're asleep, you're supposed to be safe. But that is when they do that. And they are let in by somebody who, like, knows where she is. And so Taryn wakes her up. She's like, wake up now, like, in her head. And she, like, jolts up. And he is calling Seagal to, like, tell Xaden, who is Seagal's writer, to like get over there now. And so she is like trying to keep herself alive, and Xaden comes in and he just like murders all of them. And then he like just kind of leaves, doesn't he?
Yeah, this scene was nuts because Taryn does wake her up, but obviously she's just woken up. There's 7 people in her freaking dorm room and she is literally about to die. And Darna comes and screams like in her head and freezes time for just a little bit of time. It's not a incredible length of time, but enough for Violet to move through all of these bodies that are frozen in time. And then she sees that Xaden is at the door. Like, one of the 7 ran out, female ran out. And then Oren is in the room, but Xaden just bloodbaths this entire room. And then he goes and gets like Imogen and Bodhi and Liam, I think, to like come in and clean up all the bodies and stuff. He functioned within Codex by murdering them because they were doing what they were not supposed to be doing, which was trying to kill her, you know, at bedtime.
In her sleep.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
And then she lets him know who the person was that opened the door and ran.
Yes.
And so he has her called up for like basically what was like a little trial.
Formation.
And he's like,
at the next morning.
Yeah. And he's like, this person, and it was Amber Mavis. And so Dane's like, no, she wouldn't do that. She follows the rules and blah, blah, blah. And he turns around and he's like, give me your memories to Violet. And Violet's like, no, like you should either believe me or not. And he kind of tries to force it. And at that point, she loses respect for him because she's like, why would you force this? And she's also afraid that he's going to find out some of the secrets of Xaden that she is holding for him. And so she doesn't let him. But it just knocks him down, in my opinion, too. But in her opinion, that he didn't believe her after knowing her since she was 5.
There's so many things wrong with this scene. It's like the final corner that he turns, because up until this point, he's just been so annoying and protective and coddling and not believing in her ability or what she wants at all, like not taking that into consideration whatsoever. And then here, he's just like not believing her, wants to believe Amber, and then he's just trying to physically touch her, and she's freaking out about it. Like he doesn't have her consent at all to touch her. And it has her questioning any of these times where they touched in any capacity, like their faces and stuff. And like, she is just second guessing everything.
And then Taryn comes in and she's like, can you project the memory? And so he does. And everybody then sides with her, and Amber is put to death.
She blasted up in flames.
And she feels bad about that because she didn't want her to die. Like, Violet is a very violence person. Like, she likes violence, but she doesn't want people to die from it.
No, she feels bad. Like, she has a heart, right? So, by Amber, and then Xaden decides to get his bestie that he grew up with, Liam, who is another separatist child, to be her bodyguard. Liam is basically around the clock with Violet from this point forward. He's gotten a room next door to her, so he is close by whenever. She gets taken off breakfast duty and now is on library duty. He's pushing the cart with her. And we see like a little side of Liam that's really cute and fun because he's very flirty, very flirty. He's flirting. So Violet has a friend named Jacinia that she's very close to. And Jacinia, she only can communicate via sign language. And very smart. She's in the Scribe quadrant working in the library. But Liam is like flirting with her and like trying to talk to her and stuff. It's just...
He's adorable. I loved Liam.
Yes, Liam is adorable.
He's like a little puppy is what he reminded me of. Like, he follows her, but he's adorable. But he's also like a very badass too. Like, he's like
yes, he has passed top of his class in all of the parts that they are measured on, whether it's timed fights, whatever. He's always been the top of his class, which is why one of the reasons why Xaden put him on protecting Violet. And then we see how deep this mating bond between Sorrengail and Tarn is, because they choose. Tarn picks this moment to like finally give Violet her power, right?
But he does that for a reason, because she just stood up to Xaden like right before this. They got into a huge argument, and that is that was in his mind I know you are ready for the power because I know that you will stand up for what's right.
Yes.
With this power.
I think it's also just in their best interest to give this to Violet, especially after she was attacked by 7 people too. Like, it's time to give her like more ways to defend herself too.
So they give it to her, but it's during a special time for the dragons who are mated. And so we see like a significant amount of lust going down these bonds of this power, right? Because they're getting it on. The dragons are.
You know what this reminded me of? I hope there are people out there that have watched the show from like 1999, 2000, maybe. Dark Angel with Jessica Alba. She is spliced up with different DNA, and she has some cat DNA in her blood. And every once in a while, she's like in heat.
I didn't know you worked out.
Are you all right?
Thanks. I need that.
And she is so overcome with like wanting to have sex and just horniness, that she's just like on the prowl to sleep with the closest person that she can get her hands on. And so this scene reminded me like how Violet is acting. She is getting hot and bothered in her dorm room while these dragons are like doing their dragon things. And so she runs out for some fresh air. Who else is getting fresh air?
Xaden. He's actually not getting fresh air. He is getting some dope air because he says that like helps like cool it just a little bit and let you like kind of be just an outsider watching it. I think his thing was like, it's the difference between watching porn and like being in the porn. Like, and so he also teaches her how to like kind of shield a little bit where she can like block some of those feelings that are coming down that bond. I did like this does open up so much of their sexual tension though. Like they're fighting it so hard right now, but you do see like there was a moment where she mentioned Liam in her bed, like in her room or something, like, and he's like, wait, he's in your bed. And like you see his jealousy even over the person that he put there, like being near her.
She thought about it. She was like, oh, I could just like knock on his door right now. Like, didn't she think about it? Like the thought crossed her mind on her way to go outside for fresh air.
Yeah. Yeah. She's like, well, I can just go to Liam. Like, he's right there. And he's like, wait a minute. Boy. He's in your bed?
No, his bed. Next door. His bed. But they share a kiss, right? And it's like snowing. It's like all the romantic vibes out here. And then the time comes for Violet to face off Jack.
Yeah, because he challenges her. And she knows that he is going to challenge her. So she tells somebody that, like, tomorrow I'm fighting Jack. So, like, I need to be on my game. And they're like, how do you know this?
Yeah.
And she's like, don't worry about it. I just know. And then Jack does. And they're just like...
Yeah. And it's going to be a little more difficult for her because she's not on breakfast duty anymore. So she has to get a little more creative than usual. So she faces Jack on the mat. And at one point, he just has such like strong hatred in his eyes. There's one point where it's described that he's pushing power down her throat, like just smothering her with his power and energy. And this is when she like decides to like break out this vial that she had because Jackie Boy is allergic to oranges. And she just like shoves it like in his mouth or whatever. And so he gets very, very sick and needs to go to the infirmary.
And he is mad because she also did the damage to his shoulder. And so he had to have surgery and be out or whatever for a little bit. So he's holding a lot of hatred for her at this point because he thought she was a weakling and would be easy to kill. And like he's tried so many times. She's making him look kind of dumb.
And also a lot of his friends are dead because of, you know, her or Xaden. And so all of these people, Dane, Xaden, Rhiannon, they're all very protective of Violet. And it's just like fanning that flame.
And it's really like, I think Xaden even makes a comment about really oranges. That's your poison. And she's like, hey, it worked, didn't it?
Yeah, it had to. She made it work. Then there's like this capture the flag type of challenge. Now that they have their dragons and access to their magic, they are split up into their squads, and it's more like capture the egg because the egg is worth the most points. So they have to pinpoint where this egg is. It turns out it's in a tower, protected. And this squad battle is not a joke. All the dragons are like launching off from these towers and these platforms, attacking them. And so they're basically distracting a lot of the dragons. So Violet is on Tarn. She knows where the egg is. She's going for the tower. And of course, it's protected by Jack and his dragon, Bade, which is like an orange dragon, I think, or something like that. Kind of crazy dragon. And so Jack injures Liam really bad. And Liam falls off his dragon and is plummeting.
This is why I didn't remember this because I was blocking out this memory, Sandra. Okay, thanks. Thanks a lot.
I mean, it was like the precursor to what happens later, right? It's almost like foreshadowing what happens with Liam again later. So like Liam is falling off this dragon and there's no way in hell that they're going to be able to catch him. But again, baby Andarna comes in, freezes time just long enough for Tarn and Violet to swoop down and get him. And then this is the first time that Violet manifests her power too. Like, she lets out a lightning surge that demolishes this tower and buries Jack. And he gone.
Finally.
And then they win.
But then she still feels bad. Like, she still feels bad about killing somebody. And she feels like her power is just bad.
Destructive, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, she's like, why did my sister get to shield and protect? Why did my brother get to mend things? Like, why is my power like absolute destruction? Yeah.
And she's always been told that your power is like you. Like,
Yeah,
your
it's kinda
innermost
like a
person.
glimpse of your soul. Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. And she's like, I don't feel like I'm like a destructive person. She is a lightning wielder. But before that, because they won, like, she got to go see Mira, right? And her team got to go see Mira, and she helped Rhiannon see her sister who just had a baby.
Yeah. It was basically like a field trip. They won a field trip to Montserrat, which is an outpost where Mira has been deployed to. And I love that scene. Like, we needed, they're not supposed to communicate with their family any way, shape, or form, even written letters or anything. But Violet takes it upon herself to help sneak Rhiannon out to go see her sister for a little bit. And then Dane's there, Liam is there, and then somebody else shows up, and it's like the most awkward dinner ever.
Yeah, Xaden shows up, and Mira is solely against Xaden. And you have Barlowe over here like, oh, be nice to him. Like, it's okay. He's not that bad. Like, be nice. And it was because their dragons couldn't stay apart.
Yes. It was like 3 days is the limit, apparently, that they can be separated before someone needs to see the other. And so he just shows up. And then Violet asks this is where she asks Mira about the book, right? And Mira has had the Dark Fable book about the Venin folklore and the Wyvern. And she's like, yeah, I'll get you the book. But then they are attacked by Griffin riders, right? And Mira is basically like, Xaden, take Violet out of here. Like, we have this handled. Just get her to safety. And Violet does not want that at all. But Xaden basically promises the sister. And the sister also says, like, if you want to earn my trust, find a way for Violet to, stay on her dragon or whatever. Because she finds out that Violet cannot stay on her dragon and like freaks out about it. And after they escape, it's like the days after, Violet is like waiting to see if Mira made it through this battle at the outpost. And Xaden did a little something for her in this time. You want to talk?
He built her a little like saddle. And the scene where he shows her, because he's like, how'd you get him to like sit still for this? And he's like, well, I had to promise him a whole bunch of things, like that he can take it off and like blah, blah, blah. So she now has a saddle to sit on. Jared, which is again like unprecedented.
Like
Yeah, it's like very unprecedented that a dragon would allow you to have a saddle, which is her first comment. Like, this isn't allowed. He's like, says who? Like, I'm the dragon. I make up the rules. And there was a scene where they get it on, right? Around this time.
Very close. So Violet learns, before we get to the smutty scene, Violet learns Mira's okay. It's like the cutest scene because she goes up early to go look and find out news about it. Xaden brings her coffee, and then fucking Dane shows up and is like embracing her and stuff and all this shit. And then she turns around and Xaden had like left. Like, I guess he got jealous and left. And then over the next like time period, she starts getting to know Xaden, like trying to ask him questions. She figures out his favorite food is chocolate cake, which is so adorable. And Xaden starts acting like super secretive, like more secretive than normal. And then, as you said, the saddle part. And then they have a dorm scene because she has been struggling with the death of Jack and her power, like what it means for her. And so she's just like throwing her knives in her room. And Xaden, freshly showered and all hot and handsome, all 6'4" of him in his tawny skin and black hair, shows up at her door and is just trying to make her feel better about it. And that's when this little crazy smutty scene comes about, right? Because isn't this where like everything is destroyed?
Yeah, her powers come out. Like, because she hasn't learned to control them yet. And so she is like shooting lightning during this.
There's
yeah, and
forest
he
fires.
like breaks a few things too. Yeah. Oh, so we haven't mentioned this yet, but he is a shadow wielder.
Oh yeah.
So during this
detail.
smutty scene, he puts up shadows to like protect from her powers getting out, which is also really cute. Because she's like losing it. And he's like,
She's just
people
uncontrollably.
don't need to see what's going on.
Yes, uncontrollably lit up, everything on fire, and he's just going and smothering it like an extinguisher. And it was a very good scene. And she figures out the story behind the 107 marks on his back. Tara's totally laughing at me, but whatever.
Oh.
I like these sexy scenes make me giggle.
No, I liked it too. I was like, yes,
It was
ready
a good
for this.
one.
And she does. She finds out the 107 marks on his back that she sees while they're getting it on are basically, he took ownership of all 107 of the rebellion's like kids. And he made a deal that instead of being put to death right away, like their parents were, they can enter like the school. And if any one of them steps out of line, he will take the blame for it. And so that was why he was trying to help them like succeed and live. And that is why Liam says that he owes everything to Xaden, is because he literally owes him his life.
So we see some layers on our little onion getting peeled back. And they also have this talk where Xaden basically tells Violet, like, you're not allowed to fall in love with me. And she's just like, because she made the comment that she can't separate the physical from the emotional, like how she feels about him. And he's just like, you're not allowed to fall in love with me. And she's just like, how dare you tell me what I can and can't do? She basically agrees to like, if they hook up in the future, so be it. If she falls in love, it'll be on her. Like, that's her choice, So.
Yeah. And she's learning about these kids during Remembrance Day, right? Which is like the day that everybody else is celebrating the death of his dad and their parents.
Reunification Day.
Yeah. Yeah. And everybody else is like celebrating the fact that they're dead. And he's over here like sad that his dad is dead. And so she goes to sit with him and like she hears that story. And that is, I think, where she tells him that she loves him. And he's like, you weren't allowed to.
Yeah. And she's just like, fuck you. Like, you don't get to control how I feel. And she crosses the parapet for him where he's brooding alone. And like Garrick and Bodhi or whatever, basically like, oh, you don't want to bother him right now. But she meets the king too, because the king has a, relationship with the general, her mother. So she meets the king. And after she kind of consoles Xaden, he takes her back to his dorm, and then they just have like a little sexy fest all night long, and they're like counting how many times. It's like their 5th time that they're like getting it on, and then all of a sudden Garrett comes banging down the door and is like, we're under attack, which turns out to be war games. And then this is where shit starts really getting dangerous, because Xaden puts Violet on his team to go to Athbean or whatever it's called, when she was originally supposed to be on Dane's team. And Dane is being super weird about the whole thing. It's just like, well, I'll miss you, Violet, and like, says goodbye to her. And so they go off to Athben. They make a pit stop, and all this kind of crazy shit happens because their enemy has been the Griffins, the kingdom that has the Griffins and the Griffin Riders. And they make a stop near this lake, and these 2 Griffin Riders are talking to Xaden, and it's obvious that they've had this relationship where Xaden has been smuggling things out of the school and arming them against what folklore?
So the Griffins are fighting the villain. And she's like, wait, that's not real. And they're like, oh, yeah, it is. It's real. And her dad had slipped a note into that book saying, like, beware of history because all it takes is one generation to wipe parts out. And so basically she's like, that's what he was trying to tell me, is this generation is trying to wipe out our enemy is not the Griffin or the, like, Rierson's dad, but it is, in fact, the Venom. And, like, so she is figuring all this out, but she is also pissed at Xaden for keeping this from her and for lying to her this whole time.
So they leave this spot. I mean, Violet's hurt because literally everybody else around her knew, and including the dragons. And the dragons are very sheepishly like, yeah, we knew and we kept it from you. So her feelings are just very hurt because none of them trusted her. And so they get to this outpost in Athene where they're supposed to be, and it is deserted. It is weird, like it's weirdly quiet. They find a missive that basically says survive or die. Like, you can either abandon this place and the civilians that are, running from it, or you can, like, go do what you're supposed to over here. Puts them in an impossible position. And they decide to just suck it up and stick around and try to help these people.
They either get to stay and help the people that are their enemies, or they get to go and prove their loyalty.
Yeah.
And so
run and be cowards or stay and die. Yeah.
This is their, like, last challenge before kind of graduation. And so, or at least that's what it is, like, get, like, told to them when they first leave for this, is that this is their last challenge. And so Violet decides that she is going to stay because she is, again, against people, especially civilians and, like, innocents dying for no reason.
This is the turning point where Violet is like, Dane betrayed us all. Like, she looks around and she realizes she's with every single person is a separatist child. And she's like, holy shit, like, he set us up. Like, we're going to die. We're supposed to die here. And this battle is horrible because there's these weird box that has been placed there that seems to be luring these wyvern, which is, the wyvern don't need a rider. The venom just control them. And the venom are very hard to kill. They adapt to your fighting style. They can use just untold amounts of power because it's directly from the earth. And the stakes are so high. And Liam ends up getting, like, his the sad part is Liam would have been fine if his dragon had not been attacked, right? Because his dragon gets ripped apart basically by these wyvern. And because we know per codex rules, if the dragon dies, the rider dies, but not necessarily vice versa, that Liam's going to die. So he's basically just, like, on his way out. Violet's not strong enough to, like, carry him to his dragon.
And we see before that, so, like, as Liam is falling, doesn't Endarna, like, try again to stop time for him and help the dragon? But because the dragon is dying like he is. But we find out why Endarna's powers are the way they are. So because she is a baby, she can't do the siphon, but she uses all of her powers. So Endarna gets, like, knocked out after each time that she uses her power because it's not being siphoned. It's, I'm giving you all of my power.
Zapping her.
To stop time. And so even the fact that she is willing to use it to save Liam, A, says how much she likes Liam, but also it says how much she knows that Violet likes Liam, that she's willing to kind of do that. And Violet is beside herself trying everything that she can to save him, and she is not able to. And so she is trying to get him to his dragon, basically so they can say goodbye together. And then Xaden comes and he's able to get him to his dragon, and then Liam dies, which is just very sad for everybody involved.
Yeah. He literally just lived.
I don't cry easily in books because I'm like, well, that's life. But that one hit me.
Liam was a sweetheart. And before he died too, he was like, please take care of my sister Sloane, when she comes through, like, just keep an eye out for her. And so Violet is just like, Violet has already struggled with her power killing things, and now people are dying to protect her. And she just feels such an overwhelming amount of guilt and doesn't think that that's fair or right. And she's just struggling with that hardcore. But she figures out with her lightning power that she's able to, it's Andarna that freezes time enough to like stop this venom, the master venom that's there. And she's able to strike that one with lightning, and that makes everything else basically fall out of the sky dead. But Violet got mortally injured too with a poisonous like dagger cut whenever she was trying to like help with Liam and help kill this venom. And so her blood has turned black. She's bleeding out. She is like getting a fever. And the end of the book is Xaden making a decision. So they're a very split decision on what to do, like where to take her. And he takes her somewhere. And who helps?
We find out that she was mended, not like she couldn't be healed because she was too far gone, that they had to mend her. And the mender was none other than her brother that she thought died.
And he's just like, welcome to the revolution. And yes, and that's how the freaking book ends. So much happened in this book, because on top of just having the first year, like all of the challenges and learning how to fly and battle brief and all of the squad battles and shit, there's also all of the real world conflict going on behind the scenes. And we're not going to talk like any theories in this episode, probably like after the next book, Iron Flame, because that one just came out a week ago. So we'll probably talk about like our theories for what's going to happen. So this is going to be a 5-book series. But Tara, you started that one yet?
Yeah. I've read just a little bit of it. Enough to know that Brennan, like, I think I actually gave away a little bit of the other one because we find out that she was mended, I think, at the very beginning of the next book. Because at the end of this one, we just find out that Brennan is there.
Mm-hmm.
And she is better.
Yes. It's like, do they go back to school now? Because that's pretty much how it ends.
What happens?
Like, we were put in this trap. We were obviously meant to die. So now what do we do? Right?
Yeah. And what happens to the rest of the like rebellion children? Because now it is known that he betrayed them and he is responsible for all of them. So like, what are they going to do to all the rest of the children?
Yeah.
And how are we going to get Mira over on the right side?
Mira would probably be a tough one to crack, right? Because she seems like very gung-ho on this military, for Navarre.
Well, I think she could be gung-ho on any military. Like, she's a writer. But, like, both her brother and her sister are on this side. Like, she's going to switch over. But how?
What about Mama
What is the point in time? Oh, no. Mama's an evil little bitch.
Oh, tell me how you really feel.
Like, I think Mom was playing them all. Like, I think that, like, Mom probably had something to do with Dad's death.
The Dad's death is very mysterious.
And we said we weren't getting into theories. But I think Mom had something to do with Dad's death because he figured out what was going on.
Yes. Dad, I don't really know. It said he was, like, a member of the Scribe quadrant. Did it talk about the things that he was researching in this book? Like,
he was researching the venom.
The venom.
And he had notes.
Yes.
That she told somebody that she didn't know where they were, but she did know where they were.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think Rhiannon is going to come over to their side because, like, Rhiannon is the ride or die bitch.
She's not separatist, though, right? She's not. Yeah.
No. But she's a ride or die for Violet.
So who do we have remaining?
That was the other thing. That was the other thing that I thought was hilarious. So, like, when they come up for this, like, last thing and they're told that, like, we're being attacked. So Violet was obviously in Homeboy's room, right? And not clothed. And so he gives her his jacket. And so Rhiannon the whole time is like hiding the emblem that shows it's clearly his jacket that she's wearing from Dane. And so she just like keeps putting her arm over her shoulder. Like,
Yes.
I was like, yeah, you go.
It's like 4 a.m. or some ungodly hour, and Violet puts her freaking dress back on and is wearing Xaden's jacket, and she still has her hair up and all this stuff. It's so funny. They're good girlfriends. At least we have Rhiannon and Garrick and Bodhi, and I'm trying to think of like who else, because Sawyer's still
Imogen.
around, and Imogen. Yeah. So we'll see.
Yeah.
I can't wait to talk about the next book. So
I can't wait to read the next book.
I know. Hopefully it takes you quicker than it took me. It took me like a solid week. So, but it was so good. I cannot wait to talk about this book. So that'll be next time. So our second bonus episode covering Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros, as we do our little Sarah J. Maas between ACOTAR and Crescent City intermission. Break. I'm like, oh yeah, we immediately start recording episodes. Sorry, Tara.
Yeah, I was like, wait a minute. I thought I was actually going to get a break here, Sandra. No, I have to read another book.
It's holidays too.
And then Sandra is like, okay, are you done? Are you done? I'm like, I haven't started. So then I read it in 2 days.
I've just been like vibrating with energy, wanting to talk about this book. So next book though, it's on. So we hope you enjoyed this episode of Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. Tune in for the second bonus episode covering its sequel. And we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.